What do you get when you combine teen drama, superheroes, and sprinkle in a few Mortal Kombat finishes every now and again? Invincible really seems to be everyone's favorite series to hate on, but is the hate justified? In this video I will share my views on the series as a whole and shine a light on what I believe are core issues that are holding the show back. I won't be addressing the animation of Invincible since it's been talked to death already. The graph on screen shows what I consider to be the main reason as to why the animation looks off at times. Instead, I will focus on the show's identity crisis, why fights feel tiresome, the lack of storytelling, and the overall tone and pacing issue the show has. With that being said, let's get right into my first point.
Fresh squeeze, tangerine dreams, I'm sliding. Stocks up, dashboard digital, I'm gliding.
Invincible is the first show I've watched that didn't know what to do with its runtime. Instead of actually progressing the main plot and maybe even show the antagonist's POV, the show just wastes your time with pointless plots that go nowhere. The show doesn't even give you any time to settle in a mood. What I mean by that is, the show will go from drama to action with very little time to adjust in between for the viewer. And it really only takes away from the emotional weight these scenes had, because if the show glances over a reunion like this that quickly, why should I care?
Organic place, salmon over quinoa. Keep it authentic, everything you see raw.
Do me a favor and close your eyes for a moment. Can you tell me who was fighting there? I bet you could. Those were the Guardians of the Globe, and what I liked about them is that they had a very distinct sound design. Did you notice who I left out though? It's these two. Why? Because there's nothing special about them. And what's even worse, from the end of episode 1 of season 1, that's all we're going to get. It doesn't matter if anyone has special and unique powers like Angstrom or Eve, they will all resort to the same brawler fighting style. And characters can be visually distinct, but that does little to make a fight more entertaining. When we take a look at all of these characters, it's safe to say that they have a similar set of skills. A fight between them will go the same way every single time until someone dies. Speaking of death, for a show with that level of violence, there's a surprisingly little amount of death occurring. Let me show you what I mean, because death is not real in this show. The level of plot armor the show depends on a regular basis has completely removed any stakes or tension that fights had. And that would only be half as bad if fights were at least interesting to look at, but it's clear that the show is lacking talented fight choreographers. It's crazy that shows with significantly lower budgets can produce something so superior to Invincible while not having to rely on cheap shock value. Fights in Invincible really feel like a means to an end to stop people from falling asleep completely. Those aren't fights that dictate how the plot will progress. No, the plot dictates how the fight will progress. Let me show you what I mean by that. Let's look at an example of a fight dictating the plot. Game of Thrones, Ned Stark versus Jaime Lannister. It was clear from the beginning that this fight was nothing more than a show of power meant to intimidate. However, due to an interference by a guard, Ned Stark is severely injured and crippled for the rest of the season until he is ultimately executed. Now when we look at Invincible, injuries don't play a role and have no lasting effects. Characters will go from this or this back to normal after spending a week at the Pokemon Center. And you could say that Viltrumites are the exception, they have a healing factor, but that's not even the case. Characters surviving injuries like this isn't an exception, it's the norm. The show will have you believe that even humans can survive stuff like that and recover from it. It gets to a point where I don't feel anything when characters actually kick the bucket, because we've been conditioned to believe they're fine no matter what happened to them up to this point.
In the morning with the stretch, I'll be counting blessings. $250,000 on the dresser, no more stressing.
I want to start just by saying that the storytelling in general is bad. Events will begin out of nowhere with no explanation as to how characters got there. Most of the time, the story will leave breadcrumbs that barely even pass as foreshadowing or build-up. Take Conquest for example. Anissa mentions him, leaves, and that's it. We never see him travel to Earth or anything. Then suddenly he's there, right on time for the season finale. Now I don't know about you, but I would call this an ass pull, but apparently for Invincible fans, this was build-up. Invincible storytelling pretty much looks like this. A normal story would feature information piece by piece and build up to the climax naturally. Invincible just says fuck it, they will mention something once and then jump right to the climax or the conclusion. This is the most apparent with character development. Take Nolan for example, he went from this to this in the span of months with nothing in between. The show just cuts out the most interesting and arguably most difficult part to write of his journey, the actual struggle. Imagine if Zuko went from this to this in a few months and all we got was a sad montage. Imagine if all he said was, "It felt right to stop hunting Aang." And everyone else would be like, "Oh yeah, well he seems nice to me now, welcome to the group Zuko." The way it's handled in the show just doesn't cut it. Skipping over Mark's training in a montage is fine. Skipping over a huge change in character for Nolan in a montage is not. Overall, I just wish there were more visual cues telling us that something happened while we weren't there. Right now, the world just feels very hollow. The show could have done it in a few ways, like having characters carry lasting marks of battle or something. But no, we don't do that here. We're just left with bare-bones characters in the most basic story possible, but I guess that's what happens when you have a cast that looks like this. Instead of actually fleshing out his characters properly, Kirkman just lays out the foundation. His viewers have to do all of the actual work.
Matcha in my cup, and I don't do no capping. I talk health and wealth and moves that make it happen.
The tone of the show is heavily carried by the music. That's why we get so many montages with licensed songs. They convey the emotional state a character is in without the writers actually having to do any work. And if the show manages to build up some tension, it's immediately broken by some random asshole. I'm talking about this scene in particular. Why does the show like to ruin its own tension purposefully like that? Or maybe the show writers are really just this tone deaf. The pacing in the show isn't any better. Look at season 3. We get Angstrom's return, the Invincible War, and Mark's fight with Conquest in the span of 4 episodes. The show knows people only tune in for the climaxes because nobody gives a damn about the things happening in between. And that pretty much sums up Invincible as a whole. It's a show appealing to Generation TikTok. There's material for memes, clips that go viral, and a few celebrity names, and apparently that's all it takes to create a genius masterpiece nowadays. The writers know you're scrolling through your phone for half of the runtime anyways, so why would they put in actual work? The bar was never lower than this, and somehow people are still content. Instead of actually thinking for themselves, people will look up YouTubes or TikToks on why Invincible is the greatest thing your eyeballs can witness and call it a day. And I guess that's what keeps most people watching the show, their own headcanon. What they fail to realize is, the author didn't intend to write any of that. It's all in their imagination. To me, the show is a perfectly mediocre piece of media that could potentially be a lot better. But the show did set a new standard. Invincible's success shows that you can become wildly successful while lacking any real talent. So yeah, if you rate this show higher than a 6 out of 10, I will assume you haven't watched it.